I'm completely against a 50-year-old marrying a 6 or a 9-year-old. Mary Joseph. Hold up. How old was Joseph? Would you be surprised by 90? And how old is Mary according to the Bible? 12. He was 12. But another one. What age was Rebecca when she married Isaac? 3. 3? 3. That's why we gave you a principle. The principle was, has the woman reached the age of maturity? Has she reached the age where she's able to perform wifely duties? Is it going to harm her if she gets married? Is it okay with the cultural standards of that time? Did you know that Aisha was already betrothed to marry somebody else before the Prophet peace be upon him by her father? I didn't even know that. Yeah, because they're not telling you that. Because they're trying to use an argument called presentism, applying today's standards of morality to the past. You know what the earliest age of marriage in the states called Delaware in the U.S. is? In the U.S., I would assume like 19. 7. 7 with the parents' consent. That's why I'm trying to tell you. We come up with a principle. And as I always say, don't you speak out of ignorance. I am so sorry, but there's a lot of Muslims that are not going to be happy about this video, and I really don't care. I've had Muslims message me saying that they left Islam and they have given me the reasons why, and it is so on point with how I felt, because the more you start researching about Muhammad, the more you start researching about these hadith, it makes you sick because it is so disgusting. You don't even have to look at other religions to disprove Islam. You can use their own resources to disprove Islam and how disgusting Muhammad was. He was no different from Epstein, you guys. And I'm gonna show you guys certain hadiths. I'm also going to talk about the comments that are in this video, because there's a lot of lying that happens in Islam, whether there is lying to new believers or just lying in general like they're doing right here. Joseph was not 90 years old at all, and anybody that is believing that needs to research more, because that is not based on religious reasoning. That is not based on religious texts at all. Joseph was young. Okay? So for anybody that thinks that he was 90 years old, you are confused. And here are Muslims just lying like they usually do. Now, Rebecca was also not 3 years old. Muslims love to say this in order to justify Muhammad's disgusting marriage towards Aisha. And remember, I already talked about how his own daughter Fatima, who was around 15 years old, he literally said, and there's a hadith about this, where she is too young to marry off to his own friend. But his friend's daughter, Aisha, is perfectly young enough for him. Disgusting. When I have talked to Muslims, there are some Muslims that say, oh my God, this is Jewish propaganda. Oh my God, this is Christian propaganda. No, it's not. This is your own religious text in the hadiths that are authentic. The other Islamic school of thoughts are perfectly fine. And if you think, oh, let me just ignore the hadiths, well, we can also look at the Quran, because inside the Quran, it also mentions how it is okay to marry girls who have not even entered menstruation. Okay, so I want to read to you guys this article from Iraq, because Iraq has changed the age of consent due to religious reasons. Okay, so a lot of these Muslims in this comment section are just lying, saying, oh, Aisha, she was 17 through 19 years old, not 6 and 9. Okay, well, tell that to Iraq that changed their laws. As you can see, this is all the Muslims just lying. Aisha was 18, Aisha was 18 and 19, not 6 through 9. Aisha was 19. Aisha was about 18 and 19. Now they say this because they like to calculate it. They like to talk about her older sister in the age of Hijrah, which was when Muhammad went on his first migration to Medina. And they like to talk about her sister, Aisha's sister, and they like to compare her age. But again, that is not possible, because there are hadiths that completely dismantle that belief. Right here, this is an authentic hadith, a Sahih al-Bukhari. I used to narrated by Aisha, not by Jewish people, not by Christians, but Aisha herself. Now let's talk about what it says. I used to play with the dolls in the presence of the false prophet, and my girlfriends used to play with me. When Allah's false messenger used to enter my dwelling place, they used to hide themselves, but the false prophet would call them to join and play with me. The playing with the dolls and similar images is forbidden, but it was allowed for Aisha at that time, as she was a little girl, not yet reached the age of puberty. Okay. And again, when I say Allah's false messenger, that is not what it says in the hadith, but I am not going to say that that Muhammad is God's messenger, because he's not. Muhammad is not God's messenger. Now, let's talk about this.
So this is another authentic hadith, a Sahih al-Bukhari 230. So it says, the washing out of men with water and rubbing it off when it is dry, and washing out of what comes out of women, discharge. Okay, so it says, I asked Aisha about the clothes soiled with semen. She replied, I used to wash it off the clothes of Allah's false messenger, and he would go for the prayer while water spots were still visible. That is what Islamic religious texts say. Again, if you're disgusted, you should be. Muslims like to point to this Quran verse and say, oh no, Muslim women, in order for them to get married, they have to be of age and be able to actually make decisions for themselves. Well, let me show you this other Quran verse that completely contradicts that and proves that you can get married to a child in Islam. Right here in this chapter of the Quran, chapter 65 verse 4, it is talking about the women who are getting divorced and what their waiting period is in order for them to get remarried. Okay, so let's pay attention. As for your women past the age of menstruation, in case you do not know, their waiting period is 3 months, and those who have not menstruated as well. As for those who are pregnant, their waiting period ends with delivery. And whoever is mindful of Allah, He will make their matters easy for them. Again, it says their waiting period is 3 months, and those who have not menstruated as well. A little girl who has not menstruated as well is allowed to get married, and her waiting period to get remarried is 3 months, just like the women who have menstruated. That is according to the Quran in Islam. Now, there's many articles about this, but this is the article from walkfree.org. Iraq's new law allowing children as young as 9 to marry undermines women and girls' rights. So right here it says, under Iraq's new law, girls can legally marry from the age of 9 in certain circumstances, depending on religious interpretations. The legal marriage age for boys has also been reduced from 18 to 15 years old. The law gives religious authorities the power to decide on family matters, including marriage, divorce, and child custody, and abolishes a long-standing ban on child marriage under the age of 18, which has been in place since the 1950s. This argument that Muhammad's life, that was in the past, and you have to judge based on what happened in the past, not the now. You cannot base that lifestyle with the lifestyle that we have today. Makes zero sense in Islam, because Islam is heavy on the life of Muhammad is the way for all humanity in all time periods, including the future. That is why a lot of Muslims emulate Muhammad to this day. Why? Because whatever Muhammad did is considered sunnah, what you're supposed to do, how you're supposed to live your life. Because again, in Islam, Muhammad is in the highest level of heaven. Meanwhile, Jesus is not at all. And they view Muhammad as above Jesus. They view Muhammad as sinless. And they think that Muhammad is the best of examples, but he's not. It would be better if Muslims just condemned that lifestyle and said, you know what, we're not going to live the way that Muhammad did. And we acknowledge that Muhammad did a lot of things that is not correct. And we're going to change the religion of Islam. But they're not doing that. They rather lie. They rather say, oh, this is Jewish propaganda. This is Christian propaganda. Instead of just admitting the truth. Instead of acknowledging what Muhammad did. Instead of acknowledging how they're taking religious reasoning in order to justify disgust here on earth in today's time.